Good day, everyone. Welcome to our subject, the teaching and assessment of literature studies. So, this is the first lesson that we will have for our subject, the TELS or teaching and assessment of literature studies. So, for today's discussion, we will first discuss the nature of literature and its genres. So, the first question is why literature and why teach literature? So, the figures here in our screen is the K-12 English Language Arts Curriculum Framework. So, we all know that the goal of the K-12 English Language Arts Curriculum is for learners to achieve communicative competence and multiliteracies, as you can see here in our chart. So, through a good mix of theories in language teaching, language acquisition, and linguistics, plus a smooth flow of macro skills and an understanding of cultures, strategies, and language itself, our learners can make meaning through language. So, as you can see in our chart. So, the next question is where does literature fall into this framework? So, as a language, we all know that the language is the primary instrument of thought. We use it to define the culture and identity we form and experience around us. So, the language is used as the foundation of the human relationships. So, we tend to make sense of and bring order to the world through language. On the other hand, literature is as an extension authors use to depict human experiences. It helps us engage with lives beyond our imagination and actual social dealings. So we then can learn more about language and how to use it effectively through our engagement with and study of text. So our learners through literature can make deeper meaning not just with language but even with life, reality, truth, beauty, and love. So that is why English teachers like you must use literature to achieve successful language learning. Draw on it to develop students' understanding of their literary and cultural heritage and also gain critical and multiliteracies, build on experiences and interests of the students, and also and reflect on how our learners can interpret the world around us. So, teaching literature will develop students' potential in a holistic, balanced, and integrated manner. So, that is the purpose of why we need to discuss or the reason why we have this kind of subject, the teaching and assessment of literature. So we can start recognizing the nature of teaching literature and its relevant introductory concepts and ideas. So at the end of this discussion, you must be able to present a literature matrix plan of a specific grade level and quarter. You will be creating two plans, one for teaching poetry and one for teaching prose. So work on the tasks intended per competency to be able to prepare the major outcomes. So the competency one is to recognizing the teaching of literature as a significant human experience. So let me get this straight. So honestly, there is no distinct definition to literature. But Thiago Marcelo pointed out and answered in one of the Core Forum during 2015. He said that so what we're looking at is either a historical definition of literature or an answer that leans on the philosophy of literature, how this word been used throughout history, or a witty creative definition of literature. So this is why definitions of literature are divided because different minds have different commitments and habits. But he ended up his answer with his personal definition of literature, and it goes literature is a living thing, something that moves the soul, makes it sing in wonder and awe. The text walks you through all the passion, despair, feelings, anger, love, hatred, and joy a human can experience. So it's almost like being in the right committed relationship. You are caught up in it and it feels like magic. So and that is what literature is asking us readers to do and have after reading a deep sense of understanding both of what we must know from the text and of ourselves. But the question now is, as a pre-service English teacher, how will you teach literature to your learners? What definition will you share with them so that they will garner the intended purposes and benefits of reading's literary text as a significant human experience? So, let us now discuss the nature of teaching literature in this discussion. So, we have different um, other definitions of literature from the famous authors and philosophers. So I wish you can read. So according to Virginia Woolf, she said that literature is strewn with the wreckage of those who have minded beyond reason the opinion of others. For Oscar Wilde, literature always anticipates life. It does it does not copy but molds it to its purpose. While Aristotle said literature is an imitation of a sequence of events. It can be categorized and thereby understood according to the method of operation and execution of each category. Literature, according to Anderson, literature is the safe and traditional vehicle through which we learn about the world and pass on values from one generation to the next. Books save lives. According to um I don't know how to read his name, literature is where I go to explore the highest and lowest places in human society and in the human spirit, where I hope to find not absolute truth, but the truth of tale of the imagination and of the heart, according to Salman Rushdie. So those are the definitions of literature according to famous authors. Next is the purposes, values, and benefits of teaching literature. So literature is a significant human experience. So we will anchor our discussion on the quotation of the Filipino authors and educators Del Castillo and Medina in their book Philippine Literature from Ancient Times to the Present. So, literature is a faithful reproduction of life executed in an artistic pattern. It is the orchestration of the manifold but elemental experiences of man blended into harmonious and desired patterns of expressions. From this, we can say that literature is life itself. So, with our significant human experiences as patches woven in artistry and harmony. So, according to Lynch Brown and Tom Limson, in their book Essentials of Children's Literature, recognize that reading literature will gain personal and academic value for our learners. So, here are the list. For personal value, we have the enjoyment, imagination and inspiration, vicarious experience, understanding and empathy, the cultural heritage, the moral reasoning, and the literacy and artistic preferences. On the academic value, we have the improving reading skills, developing writing voice and style, learning content area knowledge, and promoting art appreciation. So, as a literature teachers, we must realize how important the study of literature, including its varied forms and genres. So this list will help you identify why and how should you be teaching and learning literature with your learners. So we aim that all these values will be gained at the end of the semester or year of teaching literature with your wonderful learners. So aside from that, according to Parkinson and Thomas Insel has listed benefits of teaching literature in the language classroom as collected from the various authors and research studies. So number one is we have the cultural enrichment. So when we say cultural enrichment, that is to promote cultural understanding and awareness. The second one is the linguistic model. So it provides examples of good writing, linguistic diversity, expressive ranges. In mental training, it trained the mind and sensibility. So extension of linguistic competence, this is to stretch the competencies of learners who have mastered linguistic rudiments. In the authenticity, literature is a genuine linguistic material to be studied and read. In memorability, it can be memorized archive of linguistic usage. In rhythmic resource, that is the assimilate the rhythms of a language. Motivating material, that is engage with and motivate a learner to deal with subjects and themes of interest to the learner. So, in the ninth, benefits open to interpretation. So, these serve as a basis for genuine interaction between learners. And last is convenience. That is, literature is a handy resource. Excuse me. So, these are the benefits of teaching literature in the language classroom. So, as you can see here, um, it has so many benefits, but it can be summarized into three purposes and benefits of studying and learning literature. So please take down notes. And to sum it up, we have the language acquisition, we have the cultural competence, and the real life issues and experiences. It can be deduced that teaching literature will give learners an opportunity to enhance their language competence by identifying correct linguistic patterns and structures from these texts. So these texts can also be a representative of a particular race or group, which students can gain insight vicariously about such culture. So lastly, these literatures can communicate to the learner and to everyone else how life can be relatable, relevant, inspiring, and interesting through the real life depiction of existing personal and social issues. So studying literature therefore is a worthwhile and beneficial for young and old, rich and poor, men and women, and to the disadvantaged, to the oppressed and vulnerable. So, therefore, literature is inclusive for all as it showcases significant human experiences for everyone. So, we have also the framework to consider in teaching literature. So, let's shift now our focus from understanding what literature is to teaching literature. So aside from teaching English language arts, curriculum framework, literature definitions, and benefits of literature, what are other considerations when teaching literature to our learners? So these are the list of frameworks literature teachers like you consider when they teach various literary texts. So number one is we have the literary criticism theories. So these literary theories are schools of thought or style of analysis that gives the reader or scholars with another lens in viewing or critiquing the literary text as a work of art and a product of the author. This can also be defined as a theoretical way to interpret a literary piece according to a specific period or location. So the background and or identify of the author or the reader and to a unique worldview. So some literary criticism theories are formalism, deconstructionism, Marxism, feminism, postmodernism, reader's response, and psychoanalytic interpretation. So I want you to take note all the information regarding the literary criticism. So again, literary criticism or the literary theories are schools of thought or style of analysis that gives the readers or scholar with another lens in viewing or critiquing the literary text as a work of art and a product of the author. The next one is the genres, branches, and authors. So literature in a structural and stylistic perspectives can be divided and subdivided into branches and genres. So a certain genre can predict the form of literary piece and provide a set of expectations a reader will have to follow while reading the text. So a knowledge of authors and their texts will also help literature teachers identify which will be appropriate to a certain period, location, genre, and a set of language competencies. In the cultural and historical context, literary context is essential in studying literature because it describes the relevance of the text to the moods, attitudes, conditions, and acceptable norms which existed in a particular person, period, or history, society, group of people, or the culture, religion, gender, or technology. So, analyzing the context will lead us to a better understanding of the entire text. Models and approaches in teaching literature. So, the teaching literature models are approaches teachers may employ when teaching and learning literary texts. So, these models can be attuned to the view and philosophy teachers have in literature and language learning. So in the next discussion, you will be taught these models and approaches in detail. So we have the cultural model, language model, personal growth model, stylistic approach, moral philosophical approach, paraphrastic approach, language-based approach, personal response, and information-based approach. Last but not the least is the comprehension levels in reading literature. So this is a comprehension framework in reading literary texts guides teacher to extract comprehension from learners according to the analysis of multi-level questions from easy to complex. So learners are led to read the literary text to the lines, between the lines, and or beyond the lines. So with the art of questioning, our learners become active and critical readers in real life. So these frameworks become research-based guides for you. So as in future English teachers to assure you of a successful teaching of literature and language competencies and skills towards meaning making. So that's all for today's discussion. So I hope you learned something about the lesson one of our subject, the teaching and assessment of literature studies. So for your performance activity, so answer the following questions. So this is consists of 80 points. Put your answer in the comment section below by following the format. Your name, the black cluster, and your answer. So the deadline of submission would be on August 15, 2023. So first question is, what can you comment on Marcel's definition of literature? How do you define literature based on what you know and understand about it? Next question is, which personal and or academic value do you like to pursue when teaching literature to your English language students? Why? How will you teach your literacy text with these values in mind? Thank you again for listening. So I hope you learned something and see you in our next discussion. God bless everyone.